Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the fifth iteration of College Football Unscripted's Real Talk podcast. Things have changed it up a little bit because the normal co-host Anthony, he's away watching Liberty State play in person, just to, feel that sadness when they lose in person. So this week, I have one of my good friends and an unfortunate Florida Gators fan. My condolences to you, Mitch. How's it going, Mitch?
It's going good. Big day of college football yesterday. Rivalry week, always a fun time. The Gators pulling out a win, but we got bigger games to talk about.
Absolutely. But hey, I mean, Florida Gators pulling out that win, even though they can't normally pull out a win this season by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a tough ride with the schedule. One of the toughest schedules I think I've seen in college football, but on to bigger and better things hopefully next year.
Absolutely. And speaking of bigger and better things, before we get started with some of the games that we watched, do you have a favorite rivalry entering into this rivalry week?
I mean, I think you have to say there's only one true answer to this question, and it's the game. It's a rivalry so big that they don't have to go with a fancy name, and they just give it the game. Ohio State and Michigan. It's the biggest rivalry in potentially all of sports, and that's got to be the favorite. Just the bad blood, everything you see between the two schools leading up to the game, all the antics that go on during the game. We saw last year with the flag planting and everything, and guys getting pepper sprayed. So I think that's got to be the easy number one answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd have to agree with you there too. I think for me personally, Texas A&M and Texas Longhorns, close second. But yeah, the game, clear number one. I don't know if you saw all the antics that happened this year, but Michigan fans were even boycotting Chipotle because they tweeted something that vaguely looked like it was in favor of Ohio State.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, you get those little things, and these fan bases take the game so seriously, right? Like, you look at Ohio State's campus, you won't find an M that doesn't have a red X on it. They're going up to handicap parking spots and crossing it off. They're going 20 feet in the air to cross off an M. It's all over campus. It's all over right in downtown Columbus. You won't find an M in that area when they're playing the team up north.
I was watching some good old Instagram reels and I saw a guest lecturer at Ohio State wear Michigan gear, and then a guest lecturer at Michigan wear Ohio gear. And I was concerned for the safety. I was concerned for their safety. But with that being said, maybe we should jump into the first game of the week. Shocking, I know. It is going to be Michigan versus Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State pulling out that 27-9 victory. What did you see in this game, Mitch?
I mean, coming into it, there was a lot of doubts with Ohio State, right? Even though they're the number one team in the country, 11-0, Michigan 15th ranked, 8-2 record, but Ohio State hasn't beat Michigan in 2,191 days. So there's a lot of doubts going in, especially when you
Yeah.
have to travel up to Ann Arbor, go to Michigan Stadium, and play in front of 107,000 people. And really, Ohio State got off to a bit of a nightmarish start. Like, Michigan gets the ball first. They're driving down the field, chunk play after chunk play, stall out in the red zone, go up 3-0. And then Ohio State, high-powered offense, you think, well, let's see what the answer is. Second play of the game, Julian Sayin throws a brutal interception, which leads to Michigan in plus territory, take another field goal, which game started out great for Michigan, a 6-0 lead,
Yep.
but you're stalling out in the red zone. You get two good chances where you're down deep into Ohio State territory, can't finish the drives, and that allowed Ohio State to almost weather the storm a little bit in the first quarter, take
Yeah.
on that atmosphere, kind of get faced with adversity in the first, and once they're able to silence the crowd a little bit, get into the second quarter and later in the game, the offense started to turn up, the defense started to turn up, and they never looked back.
But yeah, and I think kind of what you highlighted there is just key, right? Michigan started off very, very hot. And then, you know, go blue, but unfortunately for them, their offense got a lot of blue balls as the game went on, right? And honestly, if you would have turned the game off after the first quarter there, you would have been like, "Oh, that's a Michigan W, 100%," right? But yeah, Michigan obviously collapsed a little bit. Ohio State came back and just won in almost every category. Ohio State has the best defense in the nation by a large margin. Right?
Yeah, and when you look at the stats coming in, Ohio State hadn't allowed anyone to score over 16 points on them coming into the game, right?
Yeah,
So you're expecting that defense to stand up. They've got a lot of playmakers on the back end and the secondary up front. And Michigan, their defense started out well. They were kind of slowing the game down, but as they started to get into that bad weather, when the snow really started to come in, Michigan's defense started to crumble a little bit. Ohio State took a lot of clock away in that second half. They had that 12-minute drive that spanned from the third quarter into the fourth, and that really put the game away.
absolutely. Ohio State with Jackson there at wide receiver kind of iced the game. Like they had 233 passing yards that game compared to Michigan's what 63.
Yeah,
Like
Bryce Underwood had a rough day, to say the least. Now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a true freshman. This is his first experience with Ohio State. They got the number one defense in the nation, but it didn't feel like he was trusted in big moments. They didn't want him throwing the ball downfield. I mean, he was 3 for 5 for 16 yards at halftime. Like, you can't really have those numbers going into the break, especially when you're losing, and then you're expected to will your team back into the game. But how do you will your team back into the game in a snow game down by 18 points? Like, it gets tough, right? Because the pass coverage, you think about it, in the snow, if you're trying to protect against the pass, your offensive line's getting slipped back in the snow. Whereas if you're trying to win the game, ice out the game like Ohio State did, your run blocking can just power forward, move guys in the snow, and it's a lot easier to run the ball than pass the ball in the snow. And another thing with Underwood was it almost seemed like if his first read was taken away, he's taken off.
yeah,
He's trying to run the ball, and Michigan, after the first quarter, really didn't have much success running the ball. They were able to have a strong first half, I would say, but once they got into the second half, they couldn't run it as well.
no, absolutely. And what I'm hearing here is we need cleats for winter.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Someone go on Dragon's Den, invent that because Michigan could and should have used them for this game, absolutely. And yeah, like as you mentioned with Underwood, overall he went 8 for 18, only 63 yards the entire game, one interception, 62.7, I want to say rating. So not a stellar showing for the freshman, but as you said, like when you're going up against the number one team in the nation, which they only allow like 103 passing yards on average, anyways, that's going to be a struggle for any quarterback.
But now I wanted to ask your opinion on something that could
Yeah,
have changed the point of the game. We'll call it the turning point, if you will.
yeah,
The Jeremiah Smith touchdown that gave Ohio State their first lead of the game. There was a bit of controversy, 4th and 5, deep
yeah.
shot down the right side of the field. Do you think he lost control of it?
So let me start out by saying it was Jeremiah Smith's birthday. It was his 20th birthday that yesterday, apparently, from what I heard. And let me just say that's a hell of a birthday gift because I feel like that was a very favorable call. I think he lost possession before he entered the end zone, and he didn't gain it back until he was out of play. Now, that's just my opinion. I know you might have a different one, but I feel like we always talk about like TSN turning points. I think that was 100% one of the turning points of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might not make for great podcast material because I'm not going to debate you here. I'm agreeing with you. I think he lost control of it. I do want to preface it by saying Jeremiah Smith is a baller. He
Yeah,
is incredible for his age, just turning 20 years old yesterday. What a gutsy call by Ryan Day, who's had a lot of flack on him in the past. He came into this game saying He wanted his team to really take control, put their foot down when they could. So he wanted to make those decisions where 4th and 5 we're gonna go, especially bad weather. It'd be a long kick.
Yeah.
I understand the optics of it. You don't want to punt from there. So 4th and 5, you're thinking dial up a nice little short play. No, let's go for it all. Deep shot, Jeremiah Smith. You're down there somewhere.
Well, and
But yeah, he looked like he lost control of the ball. Never really had it pinned because even when he would get it pinned, it starts sliding again. And when he comes down, his right foot's out of bounds. So I think Michigan got the short end of the stick on that call. And yeah, I mean, that's a big turning point because you take a 6-3 game, and that gives Ohio State their first lead of the night. And all of a sudden, Ohio State never gives up the lead again. Whereas if that game stays 6-3, Michigan gets the ball back on the 20 and maybe can muster up a drive. The crowd will be back behind them. They'll get them right fired up again. But that almost took the crowd out of the game, and that was what Ohio State was looking to do.
yeah, just speaking about the crowd too, I gotta say, that's the most red that I've seen in the big house in a long time. So I do think that crowd momentum is important, but also give Ohio State their dues, right? Like they called a good game. He went 10 for 17 on third down efficiency. He had like even on fourth downs, Ohio State was 2 for 3, right? Compared to Michigan's 1 and 9 on third downs and 0 and 1 on fourth. Like Ryan Day did some good play calling there, 100%.
Yeah, and Michigan really ran into some troubles in the third quarter because once you start losing by 1, 2 possessions in a game and you're not converting on these third downs, it's not even like they gave themselves a chance on a lot of these fourth downs. Like you're getting into these third and long situations where you throw an incomplete pass and you're forced to punt because you can't really afford to go for it because then you'd be giving Ohio State good field position. So it was an active day for the Michigan punter.
Absolutely. And speaking of not so much punters, but kickers, like we here at College Football Unscripted, we're big fans of kickers. I feel like they're one of the most underappreciated positions in all of sports. But even styles with Ohio State and Zavada,
Yeah, yeah.
100%, right? Two like Ohio State 2 for 2 on their field goals, Michigan 3 for 3 on their field goals. No miss extra points, thankfully for Ohio State. Like we shut out those kickers. Good work in the snow too. In the snow, slippery.
Some praise because even if it wasn't snowing early in the game, like that weather picked up pretty nasty in the second half. Like, and there's a lot of wind too, right? Like, there's a
Yeah,
lot of blowing snow and wind early in the game, and really no falters from either side. You gotta love it. That's a big part of the game, right?
absolutely. Like saying there, Michigan there looked more like Moscow at some points, especially as the
Yeah.
game went on. One other thing I kind of want to touch on too is just Ohio State's dominance on their offensive drives too. Like they had 22 first downs compared to Michigan's 9. You're not winning a whole lot of football games with 9 first downs.
And I mean, you take it back to that one Ohio State drive that spanned from the third quarter into the fourth. Like they absolutely iced the game. It was a 12-minute drive, I believe, and they took it all the way down from the 15-minute mark in the fourth, where they started on Michigan side of the field, drained the clock all the way down to about the 8-minute mark, kicked a field goal to go up 3 scores, and Michigan's kind of looking in the back door like, what are we supposed to do now? We're down by 3 possessions with 8 minutes to go, and our offense doesn't have a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
Ohio State really just iced that game in the
a- ab-
snow.
absolutely. And I feel like, especially as you mentioned, Michigan didn't even have a touchdown, right? And it's just that start installing, start stop. Their offense just sputtered more than my first car, right? Like you're not building a lot of momentum. You're not building a lot of engagement with your home fan. You're not building much of anything on.
Yeah, they had a lot of those struggles, and it really started from their first couple drives of the game when Michigan was looking strong. They had those drives down the field, but stalled out in Ohio State territory. And it's a team that you can't afford to stall out against. You need every point you can get because there's so many playmakers on the offensive end of Ohio State. You think of Tate, you think of Smith, you think of Jackson, you think of Sayand. He's up for the Heisman, right? So you got to put up points, but that's easier said than done playing the number one defense in the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. And overall, like we're saying Heisman, right? But how about that draft stock for a lot of the other Ohio State defense and contributors at this team? Where do you think their NFL draft stock is? And do you think a game like this decreases the draft stock of maybe some of the Michigan guys, outside of their kicker?
Yeah. Um, I don't think it decreases their draft stock drastically. Um, I think you could see some dips, but I think when you're looking at a game like this, weather comes into play, and I think NFL general managers will respect Ohio State. And I mean, they're having a historic season, right? Like they're 12-0.
Yeah.
We got the best defense in the nation, so I don't think you'll see too many backlashes on Michigan, especially you can look at other games, see what they did against other quality opponents. But then again, Ohio State's the most quality opponent you're going to get. So if they can't play up to the next level against Ohio State, what are they going to do at the NFL level? On the other end, you look at Ohio State, and yeah, you're going to see some draft stock increases, right? Some of these defensive players on Ohio State, like you look at Caleb Downs, he had an outstanding game at safety, and he's been a projected first round pick all season long. And you really don't see that out of safeties in the NFL. Like the last first round safety was, I believe, Kyle Hamilton, who's now an all pro safety for the Baltimore Ravens. And Downs could be on that same path. You see Styles yesterday, he led the team in tackles. Another guy to mention, Arvell Reese, linebacker for Ohio State. He had a strong game, and you see these teams that come in and are like a force in college football. NFL GMs respect that. They'll rise their draft stock just from doing that. You think of the Georgia Bulldogs from a couple years ago and how many guys went in the first 3 rounds, seemingly all to the Philadelphia Eagles, oddly enough. But so we'll see if any NFL team is scouting out Ohio State and see if they can team up some of these guys or if they're all just going to be first come, first serve in the first round.
You're going to see some players maybe even get drafted just because they're from that program, right? Especially in the late rounds. And absolutely, 100% agree. Once again, not great podcast content when we're agreeing all the time. But yeah, I think definitely NFL general managers are going to be respecting that. And yeah, like good day for your Ohio State defense once again, and we'll see where they go from here, right? Can they bring that natty home?
Question I had for you. So next week is the Big Ten Championship, I believe, up in Indianapolis, and it's Ohio State versus Indiana. Do you have a game pick on that?
Ohio State just makes it hard to bet against them with that defense. I know obviously Indiana has a stellar offense and all that good stuff. No disrespect to Indiana. I think you got to stay with the ratings here. I think you got to go Ohio State, Indiana, and I think it's going to be a very close game. I'm going to say probably 28-25 Ohio State.
Make it the highest scoring performance from an opponent then against that Ohio State defense.
I mean, has Ohio State faced one of the best quarterbacks in the current draft class?
I would say no.
Exactly. So I do think they're going to be a little bit more productive. The one game I'm most surprised about next week is probably Duke and Virginia, because how a team that's 7-5 makes the conference championship, I have no idea. But yeah, there's definitely 4 very good games to keep an eye on next week.
Well, there's a big, I'll call it a controversy, I guess. If Duke wins that game, they don't get the auto bye to the playoff, and teams like James Madison and Tulane, I believe, will get a spot over them, and the ACC won't have anyone represented. So that could make for some very interesting storylines if Duke is able to pull that game out.
It's interesting you say that because for the last week or so, and this might just be my algorithm, but on social media, whenever I whenever I'm looking at like college football stuff, I always see all of these commentators being like, "Oh, there should be more SEC teams. There should be more. This team and this team should be making instead of no one wants to watch these other teams." You got to have some parity though. Like if it's all the same teams that play each other all the time, it provides an interesting dynamic. Let me say that.
Yeah. And I don't want to be one of those people who always backs the SEC, but it's interesting watching some of those other games and you see like Auburn was 6-5 going into yesterday and 1-5 in conference play.
Yeah,
And LSU, same thing, undefeated outside of conference play. Oklahoma, same thing. And it's like these SEC teams get beat up on other teams, but that doesn't necessarily mean they deserve a spot in the playoff over a team like, say, an 11-1 James Madison. While James Madison may not be the betting favorite in the game, it makes it interesting to bring in that parity like you were mentioning.
absolutely. Apologies, I forgot there's 5 games. We're talking about parity. I completely forgot about the American Athletic Championship with North Texas and Tulane next week. Once again,
And that's a
my
big game for
apologies.
Tulane. Because if Duke wins and Tulane wins, I think Tulane's in the playoff.
So if you're a Tulane fan, what I'm hearing is you should be cheering for Duke next week too.
Yeah, the Blue
But
Devils fanship might be increased by a few thousand fans.
but with that being said, thank you so much for joining me, Mitch. I appreciate you jumping on here with me. Obviously, great game. Disappointing if you're a Michigan fan, but what were your just final takeaways from this week in college football?
I mean, I think rivalry week is one of the greatest things in sports. I think that can be a major takeaway. Having schools have bad blood, like you see it all across the country, right? Like obviously we mentioned the Ohio State, Michigan hijinks, Florida and Florida State having the battles with the criminals as some frat houses were putting up on their signs and everything. And yeah, I think it makes for great. Mississippi State, that was something we didn't even talk about. Mississippi State and Ole
Yeah,
Miss. There was a Mississippi State fan who posted on social media that they're using an Ole Miss jersey that they stole as a bath mat. And then there was another one you mentioned where a player was doing, or a person was doing obscene gestures in the Mississippi State locker room, or
yeah,
Ole Miss locker room. Sorry. But yeah, I think it brings out the best in these college towns, and yeah, another great rivalry week in college football.
yeah. And I think if it's anything to take away here, I think maybe other sports should be looking at having a rivalry week, right? Maybe increase some of that viewership in baseball. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Mm, But yeah, overall, great week to be a college football fan. I know there's a whole lot of other games we didn't talk about, but here at College Football Unscripted, we look for quality over quantity because that's football, baby. Uh, any last words you want to say, Mitch, before we head off here?
But I think I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. It was a blast to come on this week. Can't think of a better week other than maybe the national championship. It was a lot of fun to be on, and wish the best for you.
Thank you, appreciate it. And to all of you guys watching at home and listening at home, thank you so much for watching another iteration of College Football Unscripted's Real Talk. I've been your host, Tyler. Thank you so much. Join us next week.